measures like the TSA, the energization of the anti-corruption agencies like EFCC, ICPC, even the police now. Then, of course, we have our committee, which is like an intellectual think tank of the matter. We issue advisories. We do engagement with anti-corruption agencies and other agencies prone to corruption to try to change their orientation, their perception, and achieve a kind of paradigm shift in the way they think about corruption. And we develop tools to help prosecutors, to help enforcement, to help judges appreciate the situation. And in other words, to try to institutionalize, as it were, these things. And if anybody say we are not in the right direction and that we are not, that the administration is not making headway, let me give you one. There are many indices all over but let me give you one index. A lot of our elites, they are agents of the devil. They worship money. That means they worship mammon. How come now they are now depositing those monies in all kinds of places and then deny the ownership? That shows you there is what going on.
But some they say is a gift.
Now, but Yoruba people have a proverb: who doesn't know how to take meat, put it in the mouth and say, I didn't know where it went. So that is not the issue. But again, before we go, I must agree that there are constraints that is affecting the work of the administration against corruption. For example, I mentioned earlier on the abuse of democracy, the abuse of the rule of law. General talked about law and checks and balances. I smiled. We are from different backgrounds. This family is a law. I'm a social scientist, a criminologist. In fact, one of the hoax, deception of the legal system we have inherited is the attribution of arbitrary equality to people who are substantially, economically, socially unequal. You see, the law says we are equal before the law. That's arbitrary attribution of equality. But in reality, economically, socially, politically, we are unequal. And so when you apply the law, that is what you are having in the matter of corruption. That they are not able to deal with them as they deal with ordinary burglars, thieves, robbers, murderers. Because the socioeconomic class of those who are prone to perpetrate corruption are similar to those who are to enforce and administer it.
Yes.
And a revolutionary approach to fight against corruption must appreciate this limitation of the legalistic approach to the fight against corruption.
So
I'm sorry to say, the fundamental issue is that everybody is treated equal for the search of opportunity of what exists. And the primary thing I think that we are fighting against was captured in His Royal Majesty, His Eminence's speech. And he said, we have programs, we have budgets, we have leaders on how to curb poverty, the growing effects of poverty. In fact, poverty is underlying all the objectives that is leading us to the search for an equitable or equal society in context. Because creation is unequal to start with.
Yes.
Races are unequal with different attributes.
Yes.
So the equalness has a fundamental, basic objective to bring about some equity.
Yes.
Equity gives you equal opportunity to vie for opportunity. But this is being subverted. It's being subverted because people are not sincere, they lack the honesty, they lack the integrity in the formulation or execution of policies.
Yes.
The promises they make when they have the opportunity, they don't implement it. Rather, they engage in deception, in looting, in...
So it's just commitment to collective responsibility and also collective goals.
That's it.
Well, thank you very much, General. Let me come to the Professor. The strategy against corruption today, as it has developed lots of different kind of dimension. The society is getting more and more complex. Just as you said earlier, you can't operate in the 70s and continue with the same ethos, or so to speak, the same mode of operations to the present, this strategy against corruption. And let's move towards winding up this discussion.
The strategy against corruption has the advantage that it has a leadership that is committed, but it is constrained by the legalistic approach. And that I take the position, which I've repeated in many fora, that this has to be complemented with a social scientific approach. For about 2 years, I've been arguing that we do need a presidential truth and restitution task force on corruption that will depend not only on report, but also on intelligence work that will cover not only today, but yesterday, and impact tomorrow, that will complement the whole, that will sort of offset the disadvantages or the deficits of the legal. Take the whistleblower approach. It's an element of out-of-the-box thinking, and it's working. But it will work better if it was structured or within a larger system with more comprehensive overall objectives against corruption, yes, not just money matter. Second point I would like to make before I hand over is that our leaders must do like South Korea, what they did 2-3 decades ago, when the leaders got together, discovered that they were not developing, that corruption was killing the country, and leaders of various colors got together and reached a consensus to kill corruption. Yes. Our leaders have to do that. As of now, we are not doing that. The same leaders are not making the right laws, or even the laws that are there, they are sabotaging it with legal technicalities. They will tell you, for example, that we are a federal republic, but we are made up of states that comes every month to beg for money. That's one lie. Yes. We should not be deceptive against our population. That's a form of corruption. You say, oh, we are a republic, but we spend 5% of local government money on obas, emirs, and ubis. You say we are a secular state, but you have pilgrim boards, Christian and Muslim, all over the place. This, and even what you say in your national anthem and your constitution about being compatriots. How can I be a compatriot to a man who is putting $49 million inside a room, and I'm 18,000 naira a month? Yes. We cannot take, and you say we are compatriots. I mean, these are good examples of saying that the deception between our leaders and the population must stop. It's a form of corruption, and it actually encourages and sustains the yes, corrupt environment.
Well, thank you very much. You were talking about the social system to get things right.
Yes. Well, what I will say is that we should allow institutions to function and grow. As of law, intelligence gathering, including whistleblowing and other systems, are inbuilt in the social sciences that go behind the enactment of the laws. The laws are not just plucked by arbitrary enactment. If the institutions are allowed to grow, yes, then all our apprehensions may be put to rest. Yes. And all these premature judgments that we pass as individuals or people with group interest or other goals, I think they're often journalists. Yes. And
thank you.
I believe that we should allow the goals to manifest in what we do, yes, and in what we have promised to do.
Yes. Thank you very much, General IBM Haruna, for honoring our invitation. Thank you for sharing with us your wealth of experience. And thank you very much, Professor Kwame Odekule.
My pleasure.
So many dimensions we brought to it, actually. Well, in all, I think is the issue of collective responsibility. And just as they said, all institutions should work in accordance with the established rules and regulations and the democratic tenets. That has been Moment for Fact. I am Aliyu Bababaro. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Gas pipelines are the arteries for powering electricity. When the artery is burst, then the entire system collapses. Vandalizing gas pipelines is a criminal offense against the Nigerian people. Let us join hands and protect our gas pipelines from the enemies of Nigeria. Report any suspected vandal to the security operatives. Let us stop vandals before they destroy our collective national heritage, so we can have the Nigeria of our dreams, where there will be light at all times. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Our programs are getting better and fresher. And it's because we are thinking about you. NTA, it's all about you.
Imagine what will happen if selected intelligent Nigerian youths live together and brainstorm for 60 days with over 200 million eyes watching. Get ready, Nigeria. Something big is coming.
Robust partnership between government and private sector remains critical for effective governance, Acting President tells Presidential Quarterly Forum.
Italian Parliament commends President Buhari over release of more kidnapped Chibok girls as Northeast governors and National Assembly members pay thank you visits to State House.
Chief Justice of the Federation advises Nigerian courts to upgrade their libraries as essential tools for justice administration.
In Nigeria today, we focus on dams development and irrigation.
All right, now agriculture and mining are among the key sectors the federal government is promoting in its bid to diversify the country's economy, create employment, and then generate wealth.
And that is right, Kingsley, because agriculture in particular has been identified as not only capable of taking the country to the promised land, but also make her self-sufficient in food production, thereby boosting food security.
Well, experts are quick to indicate, however, that using traditional farming practices and low investment in research for improved varieties, as well as reliance on rain-fed agriculture, will not turn Nigeria's dream to reality.
That explains the efforts by all concerned MDAs to identify efforts towards changing the narratives. And one of the areas receiving much attention is the dry season or irrigation to facilitate all year-round farming.
Now, Nigeria has a potential of some 3.1 million hectares of irrigable land, but the country only has plans for just about a sixth of that. That is some 500,000 hectares for irrigation.
Yes, but Kingsley, but only 130,000 hectares have so far been developed for irrigation, out of which only 70,000 are actually irrigated.
Now, at present, there are some 38 irrigation and 37 ongoing dam projects throughout the Federation. The Federal Ministry of Water Resources is nevertheless prioritizing 10 irrigation and 13 dam projects.
Well, actually, about 72,000 hectares of additional irrigation areas are expected to be developed after the completion of the projects, which are at various stages of completion.
Now, to achieve all of this, a National Irrigation Development Program from 2016 to 2030 has been conceived as a long-term strategy to be executed in 3 phases.
And Phase 1 from 2016 to 2020 targets 100,000. Phase 2 from 2021 to 2025 targets 170,000, while Phase 3 between 2026 and 2030 targets 225,000 hectares to bring the total to 500,000 hectares of irrigation land across the country.
All right, now, more than 1,500 hectares of irrigable land is also expected to be developed by the private sector and state governments within the period, that's to say from 2016 to 2030, as the proposed water law opens up the sector to all investors.
And the fact that most of the dams in the country are more than 30 years old and have accumulated sediment and silt. And this means that dredging needs to be carried out for optimal use.
But many of the dams do not have irrigation canals downstream to enable farmers utilize the water resources for agricultural purposes. Now, this is also being addressed.
All right, and all these need funds, as about 59 billion naira is said to be required annually to attain the 78,000 hectares of irrigable land planned between 2016 and 2019, and a total of 1.5 trillion naira to attain the 500,000 hectares by 2030.
All right, now how can dams development impact on irrigation to facilitate all year-round farming and therefore be a boost to the nation's agricultural output as well as its food security? Now, how can the private sector also fit into the dam development and irrigation schemes already outlined in the initiative from 2016 to 2030? Now, when, obviously, are we going to start seeing results if all goes well? These are other questions we'll be seeking answers to as we focus on dams development and irrigation in the country. This is Good Morning Nigeria, and I'm Kingsley Osadolo, welcoming you to today's edition of the program, reaching you as always on the network service of Africa's largest television network, the Nigerian Television Authority.
And I am Kirian Umayo, thanking you for joining us on the program this morning, which also has a second topic, the French presidential election that saw the emergence of a 39-year-old outsider, he's called, Emmanuel Macron, who defeated seasoned politicians. And don't forget that in the course of the program, we shall also take our complementary segments, newspaper review, business, sports, foreign entertainment, news, and even the weather outlook for the rest of the day. For now, we will be joining Anne Jibono for the day's news. Good morning, Anne.
Good morning, Kirian and Kingsley.
And pleasure having you again on the news.
Same here. Good morning and welcome to the news. Acting President Yemi Osinbajo says a robust partnership between government and the private sector remains the elixir for solving the ineffectiveness in governance. The acting president, who stated this at the 3rd Presidential Quarterly Forum in Abuja, says government would further demonstrate its commitment by making itself accessible for exchange of ideas.
There is expertise within the private sector. Policymakers are here, and policymakers are supposed to be able to understand what exactly it is that we need to do to make that critical change. And I think that one of the critical things for us is how to ensure that we are getting all of what we need from the private sector players, especially those who have been very successful in developing policy and in implementing policy.
Acting President Yemi Osinbajo also received a delegation of the people of the Northeast, led by some governors, members of the National Assembly, and other stakeholders who paid him a thank you visit over the release of 82 abducted Chibok girls.
Largely on account of the fact that the international community and our development partners and those who have helped in the whole process of negotiation believe in the integrity of the president. I agree with you entirely, because I know that they recognize his genuineness and recognize his forthrightness, and I think they felt the need to help, and they knew that they didn't have to look over their shoulders wondering whether there was anything else going on. I think that has helped a great deal, and we're thankful for that kind of leadership, or leadership that shows so much integrity.
And the Italian parliament has commended President Buhari over the release of 82 more kidnapped Chibok girls. The president of the Italian Chamber of Deputies, Laura Boldrini, conveyed the commendation of the Italian legislature when she visited the Speaker, House of Representatives, Yakubu Dogara.
At Nigeria's side in its anti-terrorism effort, we do appreciate the effort you are doing, and we really believe that since terrorism is a threat for the entire world, we have to join forces in this regard.
Borno State Governor Kashim Shettima has urged parents of Chibok schoolgirls whose daughters are still in captivity to keep hope alive as government is working towards their release. It was in a reaction to the news of the release of 82 more girls at the government house, Maiduguri.
The freedom of these girls has renewed our hope and strengthened our faith in the commitment and capacity of the Buhari administration to continuously work towards the freedom of our remaining daughters that are still in captivity. With very strong empathy, I urge parents whose daughters are not part of those freed so far to keep their hopes alive and remain strong and prayerful.
In the meantime, the Sheriff leadership of the People's Democratic Party has commended the Buhari administration and all those involved in the release of the 82 abducted Chibok girls. This was during a media briefing in Abuja.
PDP welcomes it. The PDP congratulates Mr. President, the armed forces who have worked assiduously for the success of the release of the Chibok girls.
Well, over 600 internally displaced persons trained under the Durable Solution Program for IDPs in the northeast of the Federal Government Empowerment and Skills Acquisition Program have been presented with starter kits to enable them become self-reliant. The training was coordinated by the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and IDPs.
Looking at this just as a pilot program, we are further expanding and reach out to.
We apologize for that. As part of the intended reforms in the nation's judiciary, all courts in Nigeria have been told to place priority on the upgrading of their law libraries to make them an essential tool for justice administration. Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onogen, made the call while declaring open the biennial workshop for judiciary librarians holding at the National Judicial Institute, Abuja.
Delays experienced in dispensation of justice has been a source of concern to all stakeholders. As such, standardization of library services will engender speedy dispensation of justice.
Well, that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Kirian after this break. Stay tuned.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Stored water may look clean, but it has germs. Pour Dettol's 1 cup full daily in stored water, leaving you hygienically clean and germ-free after every bath. Be 100% sure.
Cadbury Bournvita now comes in an attractive new 500-gram refill pack. Simply open and reseal after use to retain the chocolatey and creamy taste. Cadbury Bournvita. Prepare to win.
So what's up, sweetheart? You really look like you're up to something.
I have a secret.
Okay.
I'll be going to Europe next week.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Like you have your visa, your passport, your plane ticket?
No, not that way. Some men are helping us. We pay them, they take us through the desert, and then we cross the sea into Europe.
The desert, the sea. Isn't that the route where many have died?
Yes, it is indeed a very dangerous journey. In 2016 alone, 4,900 people died while crossing the Mediterranean Sea to enter Europe. Many were Nigerians. For the very few who survived the journey, they are forced into prostitution or other crimes just to survive. Eventually, they will be arrested and deported to Nigeria. Don't be a victim. Don't go this way.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
And now to business news. Nigeria sells saving bonds and the stock market sustains gains. Details on business news with Leah Kaltung Babatunde.
The federal government on Monday offered for subscription 2-year savings bond at 13.18% and 3-year savings bond at 14.18%. According to the offer circular derived from the Debt Management Office DMO website, the 2-year bond will be due in May 2019, while the 3-year bond will be due in May 2020. The website said that the bond was fully backed by the full faith and credit of the federal government, with quarterly coupon payments to bondholders. The savings bond issuance is expected to help finance the nation's budget deficit. On the latest data released by the Nigerian Communications Commission (NCC), the industry regulators show that internet subscriptions stood at 90 million in March, representing a year-on-year contraction of 2.5%. The figure implies density of 48.6% in a population estimated at 185 million, placing Nigeria well above the African average of around 16% as estimated by McKinsey. Broadband penetration is currently at 21%. According to the industry regulator, at least 80,000 telecommunication base stations are required to effectively deploy 4G as well as 5G networks across the country. The International Monetary Fund (IMF) will this morning launch the April 2017 Regional Economic Outlook Report titled Sub-Saharan Africa, Restarting the Growth Engine. The report will be launched by Mr. Abebe Amro-Salassi, Director, African Department of the Fund. The Nigerian Stock Exchange on Monday continued its winning streak to see the major market gauge rise by 0.7%. Next is a graphic summary of closing figures from the NSE. Now, finally, oil rose on Monday, reversing earlier losses after sources said OPEC and its partners were considering extending their existing supply deal possibly into next year, which helped offset the bearish impact of more increases in U.S. crude output. The Brent crude was up 34 cents at $49.44 a barrel at 14:10 GMT, having recovered from a session low. Industry sources and sources in OPEC said the group and its non-OPEC partners were considering an extension to the current deal, which comprises an output cut of 1.8 million barrels per day for 9 months or more. The effects of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries to reduce global oil inventories have been undermined by a surge in U.S. drilling, which has knocked more than 10% off the price of oil in the last month. OPEC meets on May 25 when it is expected to discuss prolonging the cuts to the end of 2017, although analysts say a further extension may not be enough. And that is business news for this hour. Thank you for watching. My name is Leah Cotton. Baba today.
All right, thank you very much, dear Leah Katumba Batunde, for the business news on Good Morning Nigeria. Next for us now, we'll go over to the newsstand to take a look at the front pages of some of today's newspapers.
And joining us to look at the stories trending in today's dailies is our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atuyabi. Bayo, it's good to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, Kirian. Good morning. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, Bayo, pleasure to have you. Of course, the front pages, we have stories on matters arising from the release of the 82 Chibok girls, as well as the president's latest medical vacation. Let's begin our review by taking a look at the front page of This Day newspaper. This Day newspaper has as its lead story, Buhari expresses confidence his absence won't affect governance. Buhari expresses confidence his absence won't affect governance. It also has a writer, President is fit to seek re-election in 2019, says 8. Now, above that headline, which is the lead story, we have one which is immediately below the nameplate, Herdsmen unleash fresh attack on Benue community, scores killed. Details of that story can be found on page 10. And further above the nameplate of This Day, there are two other headlines. Federal government, that's the kicker, discos, that's the electricity distribution companies, don't have exclusivity over distribution areas. Discos don't have exclusivity over distribution areas and says it can invoke its rights as shareholder and then also blacklists ANED. You can find the story in greater detail on the front page of This Day with a jump to page 8. Now, also there on the front page of This Day newspaper is a story on the Chibok girls, that's the kicker. McCarthy's PDP comes under fire for criticizing prisoner swap. And Ojuogbo, that's one of the chieftains of the other faction. Jonathan first initiated prisoner exchange, but it was scuttled. And another writer, BBOG, bring back our girls, and community concern over secrecies surrounding girls. And the photograph on the front page of This Day shows an Italian team that came visiting yesterday. They were at the National Assembly, by the way. Kieran.
All right. Now, the new telegraph of the above the name tag, just as we had on This Day, federal government berates discos over performance, misleading tendencies. So the rider, structures close to transmission lines will be demolished. That's by the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola. And then the lead news on New Telegraph this morning is a powerful forces scuttled Jonathan's swap bid, says the PDP. That's, of course, the lead news item there. Now, with the writer, Sheriff McCarthy disagree on swap arrangement. Federal government PDP never wanted schoolgirls return. And there is a picture story there where some policemen were just pushing their vehicle there. And below that, we have herdsmen kill 20 farmers in Benue State. Khan to federal government, check menace to avoid war. That's on page 8. And that of McAfee is on page 2. And then there is very important one here, just at the bottom of the front page of New Telegraph, which says, cotton bud, dangerous to children's ears. And there is a study carried out on that, and that story is on page 10. And then just above the lead story, where we have the picture of the vice president, government can't pay 56,000 new minimum wage. That's on page 36. And then Anambra poll, close to that, on the right side, Anambra poll, APC will sack Obiano by 2019, says Okorocha. And DPO kills fashion designer at birthday party. That story is on page 9 of New Telegraph. Maybe Bayo has to come in here.
Yes. The stories of the 82 Chibok that are released have dominated the papers, and they are mostly reactions. The federal government is now to set up a welfare package for victims of insecurity. This indication was given by the acting president, Professor Yomi Sibajo, and he said the current humanitarian services to victims, especially Chibok community, has been grossly inadequate. He was speaking while receiving the Borno State elders led by Governor Kashim Shettima, who had come to thank the presidency for their role in rescuing the 82 Chibok girls. He says the negotiations for intervention by Swiss government and other international bodies was basically due to the goodwill attributed to President Muhammadu Buhari's integrity and transparency. Vanguard reports that what was done was a direct swap of Chibok girls with no less than 5 commanders of Boko Haram. Apart from the Chibok girls, there are also other Nigerian women still trapped and must also be rescued. On conditions about the swap commanders, Mr. Femi Adesina, spokesperson for Mr. President, says there's no cause for alarm. He says the Northeast is securely under the control of security agencies. He said, furthermore, fresh talks are also underway to end the suicide missions that are to ensure that the Northeast is seriously safe. The senior special advisor to the president, Femi Adesina, also says that Professor Yemi Oshibajo will met with President Muhammadu Buhari before he travels, and therefore he may have submitted the report of the 3-man committee that was investigating the suspension, the issue that led to the suspension of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, as well as the Director General of Nigeria Intelligence Agency. There have been reactions about the receipt of Chibok girls. An arm of the People's Democratic Party, National Working Committee, in the statement by Dayo Adeyeye, says the exchange of innocent girls for hardened criminals was a grave error. He adding that the terrorists will be emboldened to continue their kidnap to extract concession. The Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, described the PDP National Working Committee statement as patently insensitive to seek to douse the universal joy that met the release of the 82 Chibok girls with politics. He says it indicates that the party is not happy that the abduction that took place under its watch 3 years ago is ending. He cited instances that U.S. exchanged 5 Taliban terrorists for 1 soldier. Similarly, Israel exchanged 1,027 prisoners for 1 Israeli soldier. And therefore, this is not out of the blue. Others who spoke include the spokesman for Modu Sharif, Ojugbo, who says that his faction welcomes the swap for the release of the 82 Chibok girls. Lawyer Femi Falana says the Buhari administration deserves commendation for all the men and women of goodwill. Also, a former aide of former President Goodluck Jonathan, Reno Omokri, said anybody not happy that 82 girls were released must be a monster whose humanity should be called to question. So those are the series of reactions
that we're getting now, yes, on regard to the release of the Chibok girls. One issue that you just mentioned that we don't have on the front pages, we don't have that story on the front pages of the papers, relating to the fact that perhaps the acting president may have, as vice president, submitted a report of his committee on the suspension of the SGF as well as the DGNIA to the president before he left. So when will action be taken on that report? Perhaps when the president returns. All right, let's take a look at the front page of the Punch newspaper now, which is next for us. Punch is next for us. We'll see the headlines there, a variety of them. The lead story, of course, relates to the abduction of the Chibok girls. Some abducted Chibok girls refused to be freed, and that's according to the negotiator. Of course, you have that. By the way, yesterday we had the senior special assistant to the president who was on this program. I indicated that there were at least 83 of the Chibok girls who were on the cards, you know, for the prisoner swap, but one of them declined. Yes. This report now is indicating that there were others. Now, power firms, managers award inflated contracts. You know, that's you have that headline. That's a bit tiny for me to immediately pick. If we have a zoom of it, then I probably will be able to take a look at that. Now, let's go to below the photograph on the front page of the Punch newspaper, and then we can see the other headlines. You know, say you have the headlines there. Oshibajo congratulates French President-elect Macron, and death toll in Benue farmers herdsmen clash hits 15. And Ambode, that's governor of Lagos State, bans VIO from Lagos roads. Now, those are the headlines that we're taking from the front page of the Punch.
Okay, yeah. Now, finally here, we have the Daily Trust, and that's below the name tag, you have a controversy over $138 million e-passport contract. The full story is on page 10. And then below that, which of course is the headline, 5 Boko Haram members swapped for 82 Chibok girls, according to the negotiator. It says those released pose no security threat to the country. And now you could see, if you move up a little, you'll see a photo story there where some Nigerian brilliant students are having different certificates presented to them. These are students who actually performed creditably in various international competitions between 2016 and 2017. That's a photograph taken yesterday in Abuja with the Minister of Education, Malam Adamu. All right, and now below that photograph, you have 18 arrested over Kaduna unrest on page 4. That's where we get the full story of that. And then on the right side, you have court refuses to unfreeze Patience Jonathan's account. Full story is on page 6. And moving also towards the right, Saraki Dogara meet ministers, NLC, over minimum wage.
Yes, talking about unrest, there were unrest in 2 locations yesterday. One was Kabala West in Kaduna, the other was in Obiapo, where a chief was allegedly killed. However, the police have swapped on the 2 situations and they have brought them under control. That of Kabala was alleged to be youths who actually are under influence of various drugs that have held the society into to ransom. The Operation Yaki has stemmed all the activities and calm has been returned. Acting President has congratulated President-elect of France, Emmanuel Macron, and President Oshibajo says his election is a source of inspiration and portends a great future. He added that Buhari administration is looking forward to promoting international cooperation and the advance of peace and security. The President-elect is 39 years old. He is an investment banker, and he was, for 2 years, a minister in the administration of President Hollande. There are people rejoicing around the world that this is an end to gerontocracy. He's 39. His wife is 64.
Yes.
So he will get geriatric advice from the other room.
Well, Bayo, thanks a lot for that. What you just indicated now, we'll see how that pans out. It's supposed to be sworn in on Sunday.
Yes.
That's it. But we've seen that trend, of course, in Europe and America, the age of the elected leaders. I mean, Barack Obama was in his 40s, and then, you know, you move on to the Soviet Union, actually Soviet Union, Medvedev, and then you have that going on. But that's a topic that we'll be taking a look at in the course
of
our
program.
program.
But it has its other side. Barack Obama retired now at age 55.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So it has a long way ahead, ahead of him. Bayo, thank you for being with us today. As usual, we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
All right, it's Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. We'll take a short break now. When we return, of course, we continue the program with our discussion segments.
change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. So let the change begin from within. Look at you, yeah, change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me.
What makes a Nigerian mom powerful?
I encourage my kids to learn new things, and if they get hurt, I rely on the power of my Dettol's One Capful to fight germs.
My family needs protection from germs. I use the power of Dettol's One Capful to disinfect surfaces and clothes.
I trust the power of Dettol's One Capful for bathing. The power of Dettol's One Capful protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Be a powerful Nigerian mom with Dettol.
From the south-south to the northeast, southeast to the northwest, southwest to the north-central, the Future Assured project and its component, Get Involved, is restoring hope to millions of Nigerian women and children.
We are actually doing a lot under Future Assured, the program of Her Excellency Mrs. Aisha Muhammadu Buhari. And I believe what we are doing so far is impacting positively on the lives of women and children in Nigeria, particularly those in the internally displaced camps across the nation.
Get Involved supports the Future Assured initiative. Email programs@futureassured.org.ng. Future Assured, promoting and protecting the lives of Nigerian women and children.
You are still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Now, to set the stage for our discussion this morning, let's watch this backgrounder by Musbao Danwahab.
Meet Shuaibu Dawa Karfi and Emmanuel Udemezwe. They are both farmers, but in two different worlds. While Udemezwe and his likes in some parts of Anambra State were forced to down tools during the dry season and resorted to hunting to get daily bread, Dawa Karfi was expected another harvest second in the dry season. Such is the potential of irrigation, making it triple where others can only cultivate and harvest once a year. Dawa Karfi leverages on Tiga Dam that supports all year-round farming in Kano and its environs, but Udemezwe has no access to such facility. His chance is only limited as irrigation infrastructures across the country have been left to deteriorate under successive administrations. While no new ones are being constructed, many of the ongoing dam projects have been abandoned for ages. More so, the available dams dotting the country under the 12 River Basin Development Authorities are not optimally put to use to improve dry season farming. Out of a large expanse, Nigeria has potential for more than 3.1 million hectares of irrigable land, but for now, only about 130,000 hectares is officially being irrigated. However, the present administration's resolve to diversify the economy with agriculture leading the line has developed a national irrigation and drainage policy which the government believes will fix the sector. In a new 15-year roadmap, the Federal Ministry of Water Resources is targeting to develop up to 500,000 hectares of land for irrigation by 2030, while private investors are expected to set up infrastructure for another 1 million hectares. As ambitious as it looks, government is not satisfied as the ministry says it has also embarked on studies on new areas to be developed for irrigation, while the River Basin Development Authorities are now being directed to focus on their primary roles of supporting agriculture and irrigation. With more Nigerians taking interest in agriculture due to the current administration's priority to the sector, experts believe that development of infrastructure will be key. And only then can equal and namely environments be created for Emmanuel Udemezwe in the east, Dawa Karfi in the north, and other farmers across the country to cultivate Nigeria to food security.
All right, thank you very much there, Musbah Udan Wahab, for that background report. Now we have three guests with us in the Abuja studios to discuss this issue in further detail. First, at this time, we'd like to welcome once again to Good Morning Nigeria, Malam Suleiman Adamu, Honorable Minister of Water Resources. Honorable Minister, pleasure to have you join us again today.
Good morning.
Okay. And then we also have with us in the studios Engineer Peter Manjuk, who is the project coordinator, Transforming Irrigation Management in Nigeria project. It's a World Bank assisted project, by the way. Engineer Manjuk, a pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, it's a pleasure. Good morning.
All right, and it's my pleasure to introduce Architect Kabir Ibrahim, President of Farmers Association of Nigeria, AFAN. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, well, let's begin the conversation naturally by going over to the Honorable Minister of Water Resources. Now, that's a development initiative 2016 to 2030 with regard to dam construction, irrigation, and all of that. My colleague and I actually bantered on that before we introduced the program. It might be useful to begin this conversation by having an idea as to exactly what we are looking at with regard to the new impetus being given to dam construction and irrigation.
Thank you very much. Well, you have mentioned in your report that Nigeria has a potential of 3.14 million hectares of irrigation. And over the years, successive administrations have been able to construct over 200 dams in this country. But one thing you will notice is that a lot of these dams are just lying fallow. Not much has been done beyond the construction of the dams. Although we've had successful schemes also like Kano River Irrigation Project, Bakolori Irrigation, the Middle Rima Irrigation Project. But again, those projects you find out that maybe phase one has been done and then subsequent phases have been left abandoned. And over the years, the dam has been underutilized and the irrigation systems have not been developed to their full potential. So essentially what the new irrigation program sets to achieve is to increase the hectarage and also that is available for irrigation, and at the same time optimize or maximize the existing infrastructure that we have, so that eventually we can have a target of up to 500,000 hectares of irrigation by 2030. Right now we have just 130,000. About 50% of it requires rehabilitation, because most of the land you go to many places, even probably the largest irrigation project in the country, the Kano River Irrigation Project, about 1/3 of it you cannot cultivate during the dry season because water doesn't get there. Thankfully, under the World Bank Assisted Trimming Program, we hope to recover that loss and even increase the hectarage. So essentially that is what we are trying to do, and for the first time, we are looking at a situation whereby we have a comprehensive plan of how to put all these dams into use, or as many of them as possible. Not all dams were designed for irrigation anyway, or constructed for irrigation, but for most of those that were planned and developed for irrigation, we would like to see that we extract maximum potential out of them.
Who are the key drivers for this program that we've just indicated? Is it just the federal government alone, or you expect other players to come on board? And if they are coming on board, what will be their specific roles?
Well, obviously, irrigation is in the main driver for irrigation is the federal government. But of course, state governments are also expected to play their role. If we recall, the Kano River Irrigation Project was actually an initiative of Kano State government in the 70s before it was transferred to the federal government. Unfortunately, I do not see states, many states have not been investing much in irrigation. You find the small pockets of irrigation projects, but no, they're not really doing much. Of course, I understand also that the cost of irrigation is very high. Developing irrigation infrastructure is very high. But technologies have evolved. It's now, there are possibilities to do irrigation schemes at a cheaper cost. I know that, for instance, states have done quite well in Fadama irrigation, where they just have to drill washboards and put pumps and so on and so forth. But I think we need to do a lot more than that. But the one that is lacking is the involvement of the private sector. And we feel that it is very, very important that the private sector comes into developing irrigation. Obviously, the laws have not been there before, but now with the Infrastructure Concession and Regulatory Commission Act, there is a possibility for the private sector to become involved. And that is why we have recognized that in the new National Irrigation Program, 2016 to 2030, where we are trying to find a way to entice and encourage the private sector to develop as much as 100 million hectares in the next 50 years. Besides that, we get support from the donor partners like the World Bank that is supporting the trimming program with this phase 1 project that is going to last to 2022. And of course, and right now already the data is being collected for subsequent phases. So essentially that is it. But I would love to see a situation where the federal government is doing its bit, and it has done quite a lot in the last few decades, that state governments also increase their own investment in irrigation, and then also would like to see the private sector come on board.
All right, Honorable Minister, as a follow-up question, you've just told us that we have dysfunctional dams or underutilized dams, if you like, and again, poor irrigation system. Now, what are the specifics now with respect to bringing back those dams, or rather completing the construction of those dams or making them functional again? And considering the areas, well, the food basket of the nation, which dams in your roadmap, for reconstruction or rehabilitation of what have you?
Well, every dam that was originally conceived for irrigation is a potential dam to be developed. But of course, we have to work within the limits of our own resources. Bacolori, for instance, quite a large area has not been put to use. But like I said, we have a $495 million loan from the World Bank, and we are putting it back to Bacolori, Dadinkowa, the Tiga Dam that is supporting the Kano River Irrigation Project, the Hadija Valley Project, which is also being fed from Tiga Dam, and of course the Middle Rima also in Sokoto State, being irrigated from Goronyo Dam, which is also one of the largest dams that we have. So we are concentrating on the large dams now. But there are certain dams, and quite a number of them, that over the years, because they have not been properly used, the dam itself has a life, just like any. What a dam requires is constant flow and inflow and outflow. But when a dam is shut down for years, it begins to silt up. All the sediments that are coming during the rainy season, they continue to silt up, and this affects the storage, the capacity of the dam. And essentially, when it affects the storage, it affects the water that is available for irrigation in the long run. So that has been a problem. Certain dams, we have no choice. We have to do away with, because in any case, dam has a lifespan, 40, 50 years, and then there is a certain level of siltation that there is nothing anybody can do, because even if you spend a lot of money to desilt, you're still going to come back to the same problem after a couple of years because of environmental degradation, deforestation, soil erosion, and so on and so forth. So there are quite a number of issues affecting dams. But
do we have an indication of any or some of the dams which will be decommissioned on account of either old age or excessive siltation?
Well, we have not reached that point. Even if a dam there's excessive siltation, there are ways you can use it. You can do aquaculture, depending on the depth. You can, and another thing also is that you can look at, based on the availability of the water, whether you can change the cropping pattern. For instance, if you are using a dam for sugarcane, which takes a lot of water, or rice, you can use it maybe for, you can now use it to irrigate vegetables, or you can go to drip irrigation, where you spend less water, what we call smart irrigation these days. So there are so many ways. I don't think the issue is that before you get to decommission I think there are still a number of things we can do.
To do. Honorable Minister, thank you very much again. We'll bring you back into the conversation subsequently. But let's invite now Engineer Peter Manjuk. He's the project coordinator of Transforming Irrigation Management in Nigeria project. That's a World Bank assisted project. Honorable Minister has talked about trimming and also talked about the role of the World Bank in this particular regard. What does trimming involve, and what is the role of your project with regard to the new program outlined by the Minister with respect to dam development and irrigation in particular?
Thank you very much. Trimming is transforming irrigation management in Nigeria. It's a project of government supported by the World Bank, and it has a robust, holistic plan to transform irrigation practice in Nigeria, set us on the right path, because the situation is that we can do things better than we've been doing. And it looks holistically at the entire system, not just the infrastructure, but the human aspect, how to bring in the farmers to take their proper roles, accept their position, and see irrigated agriculture as a serious business that they can be fully committed to and involved. Train, mobilize, support them in so many areas over the years, because the trimming realized that huge investments have been made, both in dams and in irrigation over the years, but have not been sustained efficiently and sustainably. So if we are going to have a practice that will last, that will be efficient and will be sustainable, we must look at it holistically. We must put the right infrastructure and have the right institutional arrangements that can manage, that is, operate and maintain this infrastructure in a sustainable and efficient manner. So trimming is working on all fronts, looking at the dams that were built for the purpose of irrigation and rehabilitating them, looking at the irrigation infrastructure that has been put in place and rehabilitating them, looking at where there are possibilities for expansion and expanding them, and training the farmers to take their proper roles, organize them into proper organizations that can take responsibility and look less at government or depend less on government for maintaining the system. As much as possible, the tertiary end or the field level should be wholly managed and operated by farmers.
What is the duration of the World Bank project, and what is the extent of your involvement so far?
The duration of the World Bank project is like the Honorable Minister has said, it's like a pilot scheme. It's to last for 7 years, ending in April 2022. We are close to 3 years now. We've been so much involved with studies, different kinds of studies, because these are engineering projects. You have to carry out all the necessary studies before you start actual physical construction or implementation. But alongside the studies, the training of the farmers, the organization of the farmers, mobilization, sensitization, capacity building are going concurrently. So we hope in the next 4 years we would have succeeded with the first phase, and we can look on ways to expand or to replicate in other places.
Now, what's your assessment of what we've done so far within the 3 years?
I think I can say so far so good, because we've been taking it one step at a time, and we've been thorough in all that is required in the studies, supported by the bank, of course, with its experts in so many fields. We are in good shape, and we're making tremendous progress, positive progress, preparing something that will be sound and something that can stand, something that will not collapse after 2-3 years.
All right, so hopefully in the next 4 years we'll be talking about a complete project, that will be useful to Nigerian farmers. Now, that brings in Architect Kabir Ibrahim, who is the president of All Farmers Association of Nigeria. Well, farmers are at the receiving end in all of this, and the minister has told us about the plans that are hopefully going to be implemented to ensure that we have all year round farming system. Now, what's your take in all of that? Are you satisfied with what is being laid down to be able to ensure that we have a all-year farming system?
Good morning. Look, everything that has been mentioned is in planning stage. We anticipate that there will be success, and we're hopeful that these things will work. I would like to say that if the farmers get really involved in all of these things, even from planning stage, it will be better for the Nigerian farmers.
Are you not involved?
Not really, but you know, some form of involvement exists, but this will definitely be something that will not be very, very loud. But we hope that with the current agriculture promotion policy, the whole gamut of what needs to be done in agriculture will bring us all together. Like the work that the World Bank is doing, it's something that we are hopeful will benefit the farmers and Nigeria as a whole. Therefore, it is prudent for the World Bank to involve the farmers in all that they do, because at the end of it all, the farmers will drive the whole thing, and people interested in this will take it over, so that there will be less government, less involvement of World Bank or anybody. We, the farmers, will do it. And even what they are doing in the dams in the Federal Ministry of Water Resources will be better done by the farmers, because we will want to look at agriculture as a business. We want to invest as a private sector in those things. The government will not be there all the time pumping money in all these projects over time. Over 30 years, government has been putting money there. When things become silted, we sometimes talk of dredging and all that. These are not permanent solutions, but when we use these facilities, we will be able to maintain them every part of the way, and they will be very effective.
Exactly what do you mean by involving the farmers? Apparently we are discussing two things now. Involvement by way of policy enunciation and involvement as business persons. That would involve some privatization, I believe.
The thing to look at is, if anybody is planning anything for you and you are not really involved in what the whole thing entails, you have to now be told what is happening. But when you are right there, every part of the way, you appreciate what is happening. You see the problems, you you know how to get around it, and results will be seen. But if you know, the whole thing is given to you after it's completed, and you are asked to come in, you will have hiccups, teething problems, and all that.
Now, Engineer Peter Manjuk did talk about proper organization of the farmers. Are you properly organized, especially when we talk about rural farmers?
Well, look, AFAN is all over the country. In every state, every local government, we have our chapters and we have leaderships, and so we are organized to this extent. But this aspect is we are talking about irrigation farming. You have to have the enabling environment, and that is what government and the World Bank are trying to do, both trying to do. So when that is happening and we are taken along, we will definitely cut an inch in it.
All right, Engineer Manjuk, let's bring you in again. You were talking about, speaking to the farmers, it sounded more like extension services, but Architect Ibrahim, of course, is raising a very fundamental point, that this is a top-down approach that appears to be unfolding. Why are the farmers not the critical stakeholders involved in the planning and the execution and monitoring of what's going on?
Thank you very much. We have two classes of farmers here. The rain-fed agriculture farmers and irrigated agriculture farmers. What the World Bank is supporting us is to have something that is like a revolution in our irrigated agriculture, because we cannot sustain ourselves with the growing population if we don't transform our irrigation practice in Nigeria. So we are concentrated on farmers that are involved with irrigated agriculture, scattered around the river basin development authorities under the Ministry of Water Resources. If farmers are not the centerpiece and they are not part and parcel of what streaming is doing or trying to do, then we would have failed even before starting. So farmers are the centerpiece, and we are not only training, mobilizing, sensitizing them, we are also supporting them, building them in different strata of associations like the water user associations to be able to take complete responsibility of their affairs, to be able to sustain these schemes at farm level without the involvement of government. We've organized, it's a long process. It's taken a number of years. We've taken them to other parts of the world. We've taken them to farmers. I mean, we've taken them to other parts of the country that are successful. And the program also is supporting them, because if you start something new, you don't expect it to be able to fund itself. So even when it comes to funding, these associations that are being set up, that are being trained, that are being built to be what they are supposed to be, are being supported also financially to be able to stand on their feet. It's just that we are probably at the initial stages and we have not gone so far. If not, the results will be seen, and our irrigation practice everywhere in the country will be such a robust practice that is the envy of anyone to see. And honestly, the farmers in irrigated agriculture, as we are working, are fully involved from the beginning, from inception, from conception, and we are now in gradual development of the project, and they are fully
Architect Ibrahim, President of All Farmers Association, you just listen again to Engineer Manjuk. Let's dispense with this point and then move on to other aspects of this conversation. Is it necessarily the case that you're probably not aware of what your other members are up to?
Look, on the scale that they are operating, it doesn't impact the Nigerian farmers, to the extent that we want. I am aware of so many things that are happening in irrigation. I'm even aware of some involvement of the central bank in some of the irrigation projects. I'm aware of some development. Some farmers have told me their experiences and all that. What I am saying is that he has alluded to the fact that this thing is just starting and it is new. Therefore, it will take time to reach everywhere. Look, on our own, we do irrigation farming. But what Nigeria envisages in the new agriculture development plan is that Nigeria should have an all-year-round farming or agriculture. We should be able not to wait until the rains come to do this on a global scale. And this is why I'm saying that the farmers have to be involved. Because, look, you are telling me that some aspects of farming will be done by irrigation. Some people will have to wait until the rains fall. So I want a situation where irrigation has its own effect on the total or the global farmer, Nigerian farmers. And then the rainy season farming is a bonus to them. Because this is what happens. You see, take other places in the world. Take France. They do a lot of farming irrigation. Some of them even sink boreholes on their farms and use sprinklers, and they do this. We have water bodies. The minister just told us that we have about 130 hectares of irrigable land, or yes, the potential for the dams, and we want to increase it to about 500,000. But Nigeria in itself is thinking of 3.1 million hectares. Today, we are nowhere. The irrigation farming is infinitesimal. You cannot touch it. It is only on vegetables and things like that that is impacting the nation. Yeah. We should be able to grow the energy components.
Isn't that the very essence of what the minister was talking about? Because if you decompose or break down the National Irrigation Development Program. The whole idea is to gradually expand the hectarage for irrigation. So doesn't that come into sync with what
This is why I said we are hopeful. We look forward to that, and we embrace it.
Architect Ibrahim, I think you have something to explain to us here. What can be done? Right, from what you have submitted, it does seem that you are not really being carried along in all of this. Now, we are talking about two types of farmers, according to engineer here, who is saying that we have irrigation farmers and we have rain-fed farmers. Now, in your opinion, what do you really have? Are some of your members just waiting for the rains to come for them to farm, or do you think something else should be done? In what you have been saying, it does seem that people need to be engaged, to be directly involved in what. So what can government really do?
You see, when you say expand the irrigable land or the potential for irrigation in Nigeria, you want to take the people who depend on rain-fed agriculture to appreciate and know the bonuses that they can get from irrigation. So when the people know it, we can disseminate this information to the farmers that, look, go and imbibe this culture. Go and get involved in it, so that the whole system will benefit from it. But when I live in Goronyo area, and the population there, when you look at Nigeria, only those people are there and they take part in it. And then there is a potential for a dam in some parts of, let's say, Kasana. And we, the farmers, know that you derive a lot of benefits from irrigation. We will agitate for the dams to be created there so that you expand what the minister is talking about.
All right, you already have an example of that around GBA Dam, I believe.
Yes.
That's in Katsina. Well, Honorable Minister, again, you listened to the comments made by the President of All Farmers Association, as well as the engineer in charge of the World Bank project. Now, what's your take on this? Are the farmers on a fast-forward motion expecting, the immediate benefits of, having proper dams and irrigation, or there is a step-by-step stage in which they are not being, as the allegation insists, they are not being carried along, so they do not know what to expect?
No, I think we need to clear certain things here. First of all, the trimming project has looked at the irrigation practice in the country over the years and came up with a pilot program, and it selected 5 major irrigation schemes in the country to use them as a model to transform irrigation in Nigeria. So let's have that. And in that Goronyo or Kano River irrigation, there are as much irrigation farmers as there are wet season farmers. But what we are talking about is the problem is during the dry season you see a lot of fallow land, or because there is no free water, water is not flowing because of lack of rehabilitation and so on, and there are problems. So that is one issue. And then, because being a pilot program, it's involving already most of the infrastructure is existing in those places. So what it's trying to do is, I think the main thing is capacity building. Of course, they are rehabilitating the dams and the infrastructure. Then they have to do capacity building, creation of the water user association. Most of these people already have, or most of these farmers already have water user associations, but are they doing the right thing? So trimming is changing their thinking, their focus. It's helping them to introduce new techniques of fertilizer application and so on. It's going through the entire value chain, and that's what Peter was trying to say, that in a few years' time, when we have this and we're able to replicate it elsewhere, we're going to have a revolution in irrigation. Coming to Architect Kabir's comments, yes, I think irrigation practice is very important for everybody to embrace irrigation, but most people are doing that. I've traveled in the last, around September, October, I traveled across the country on some of our projects, and everywhere when you see Fadama swamps, people are planting, where there's been residual moisture after the rainy season, people are planting, but it's not, that's what we call informal irrigation. So people are also doing that, but they need inputs, they need modern techniques, they need support. So many years ago, there have been so many funds from the world, so much funds from the World Bank, International Fund for Agricultural Development to develop Fadama irrigation. That is when we began to see these wash bores and so on coming up with petrol pumps and so on. So a lot has been going on. But I think the kind of support that the chairman of the All Farmers Association is talking about, I think state governments need to come in. That is where state governments need to come, because they are closer to the people, they are closer to the farmers. So there has to be a complementary effort. We are dealing with a major infrastructure, but there are pockets of irrigation potential everywhere in this country. And it's not, the federal government cannot have all the reach to those places.
I'm just wondering, Engineer Manjuk, in your outreach, in the course of your trimming project, are state governments involved through their ministries of agriculture?
Yes, because when we're talking about the stakeholders, the Ministry of Agriculture and Ministry of Water Resources in the states are involved and carried along. And the whole essence is to be able to maximize the potential that is there in the irrigated agriculture, because it can double or triple the rain-fed agriculture alone. So stakeholders, as much as possible that are identified, are being carried along, so that, because the target is different institutions, different bodies should be able to appreciate what their roles are and do them well. Should be able to appreciate where they need to lend a helping hand and support the farmers. So the state governments are excited about trimming, and they are also partnering, some even offering to do some things to support their farmers to succeed. So stakeholders generally are being carried along and are part of what we're doing.
All right, I'd like to come back to you, the president of the Farmers Association. Now, the minister has said here several times, that the states need to play a significant role in ensuring that whatever is coming from at the federal level trickles down to rural farmers who are basically based in the states. Now, what, in your opinion, should be the role of state government in all of this? And again, are your members benefiting from whatever agricultural program that states have?
Oh, definitely. The states own the land. The farmers are in the states. There are so many projects going on. Our people are involved in them. They take part in them, all right. But what I am saying for Nigeria to do is that the farmers, all of us, we should have those options. That's what I mean. The thing should be expanded. Just like the total cultivable land, about 84 million hectares or whatever, and only about 40 of it is in use. The minister said 130,000 hectares are now what we have. We envisage about 500,000 hectares. Nigeria thinks about 3.1 million should be available. I am saying that for this to effectively impact on agriculture and Nigeria's economy, we need to do more. We are like Oliver Twist. We are asking for more. We are not saying nothing is happening.
All right.
A lot is happening.
Yeah, Architect Ibrahim, thanks a lot. Again, let's go over to the Minister of Water Resources. The National Irrigation Development Program is a 15-year agenda, 2016 to 2030. We're into the second year already. From your conceptualization of the program, what would be the critical success factors to realize its intended benefits?
Honestly, there is just one: funding. If we can get the funding, and funding means not only government funding but also investment from the private sector. We have the National Water Resources Master Plan, and for the entire water resource sector, that has identified all the potential areas the 3.14 million hectares. And I can tell you right now, we're even in our budgets from 2016, where we already have designs or we have ongoing projects or abandoned projects, we're resuscitating them to put in as many hectare, as much hectare as we can. That is one. And we're doing studies and design to open up new areas. The idea is when we do this study and design, at least we have more sufficient information that we can provide to the private sector to come and invest. For instance, between the Niger and Benue basins, out of these 3.14 million hectares, 1.8 million hectares is actually there. There is abundant water, there is abundant virgin land. So we're doing the studies, the detailed studies, and then we can now present to potential investors while we're working on that.
Roughly, in what areas do you expect the private sector to invest?
Well,
is it in infrastructure? Is it in canal expansion? Is it in
everything. You know, irrigation now, there are certain areas that you don't need to build a dam to do irrigation. You can actually pump water direct to sprinkler irrigation and continue. So these are the kind of things that we envisage. We are not asking them to come and build dams because that is a huge. I think that will always be, for a long time, to be within the purview of government.
Oh, okay, still staying with you, Honorable Minister, you talked about the private sector. How would the private sector recoup its money if it tries to invest in dams? How do they recoup it? That's one. Two, with all this, are you considering international best practice? I was privileged to be at the World Water Week in Stockholm, Sweden in 2014. And what I learned from that is that most of the time, what works elsewhere does not work here. So are you drawing any inference from such world conferences on water to see what you can do better?
Well, your first question, I just mentioned before that I don't envisage that the private sector will come and build large dams. I think that will still, for a long time, can be something that only government can do for them to be profitable. But like I said, there are so many techniques of irrigation that they can come in. And there are areas where we already have the dams. The land is there lying fallow, which they can take up. And I can tell you that in the last few months, we have allocated over 20,000 hectares to commercial farmers. And everyday applications are coming in. People want to come. We'll give them the water, they'll pay for the water, and then they can use the undeveloped land. They want to clear it and maybe put some canals and walk. People are ready to do it. They know it's, and these are long-term leases that we're giving people. It's no longer a situation where we are going to be renting out land for 1 year renewable. We'll give you for 25 years. But of course, we want to check every 5 years. We want to be assessing what you are doing every 5 years, because some people collect land and they become from the river basins or from government, and they become landlords on their own. They don't do the cultivation, they end up leasing out the land to others. So that is being taken care of. Now about technology. Right now in the ministry, I've tried to create, because we keep getting bombarded with all sorts of technology, so we've created units within the ministry to assess current technologies and of course to see whether they will adapt to our situation. I don't subscribe to the idea that you see technology everywhere and you bring it to your own country. I don't subscribe to that. You need to make sure that it is adaptable and it is workable. But then there are also technologies that will really work. But I think essentially what we need to do is just to have a change of attitude and have a new focus. At the end of the day, it all depends on the individual, not the machine. So that's what matters.
Well, it's another point to also ask you to clarify is as follows. You were talking about leases now being given to, granted, as it were, to applicants, private sector persons up to about 20 hectares, you've just indicated. In this irrigation development program, what is the role of the river basin development authorities?
Oh, there's so much for them to do. After all, to start with, they're the custodians of the infrastructure. Most of the federal government irrigation infrastructure, 100% of it is in the hands of the river basins. So what we have done, number one, because they have derailed over the years from their main function of managing and expanding these schemes. For first thing we've done is to inject new management into the river basins, and we have professionals everywhere. they're either engineers or water resources management experts or agri experts who really know what they have a clear focus on what a river basin development authority should be. So that is number one. Number two, over the years, their budgetary system has been distorted. You find river basins doing schools, doing street lights, doing erosion control, and you look at their budget, there is hardly anything related to irrigation and agriculture. That we are trying to stop now. From 2017, most of the budgetary heads of the river basins are entirely related to agriculture. You know, so that has been done. Thirdly, we have restored agri-extension services. This was not, for many years ago, I think it was stopped, but we have restored that so that they know that their primary purpose is to support farmers. Essentially, that is the main purpose of river basin development authorities.
At some point, the BP, that's the Bureau of Public Enterprises, was contemplating either the commercialization or privatization of the river basin development authorities, and we actually had the officials on this program discuss that. Now, from what you are saying and what you are doing with the river basin development authorities, would that commercialization or privatization be put to a hold in the meantime?
No, absolutely not. In February last year, we set up a committee on revitalization of the river basins, and we, for the first time since 2016, I inaugurated the National Council of Privatization Steering Committee on River Basin Development Authorities, which worked and submitted a report. We are not privatizing the river basins. We are starting with partial commercialization and then going to full commercialization, but certainly not privatization. And that is in the works. Part of the agenda of this new management and this administration is to commercialize these river basins. And the whole thing is still, it's work in progress, but we are not abandoning that.
All right, you are still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Now it's time for us to look at how people are reacting to this morning's conversation through tweets. And I have the first one here, Arushla Ahog Lord. That's a good one. How many dams do we even have in Nigeria?
And then this is from Dele Jack Solomon. Says if the Nigerian government harnesses its dams in the Niger Benue Trough, Sokoto and Chad basins and others, it will ensure the availability of food.
All right, there is this from Sani Michael or Michael G. And he says, if the burning desire to revive agriculture must work, then development of dams and irrigation will be key to actualizing our dream.
Festus Akimboyewa tweets, while large dams for irrigation will improve food security, government should support farmers to own low-cost, small-scale irrigation system.
All right, from Musa Edward, how can the government of the day revive some of the dams lying dormant?
Another one from Dele Jack Solomon is that it is imperative for government to start planting of trees and controlling pollution, as climate change effect is evident in the shrinking of dams.
And more from Sani Michael or Makoji. Until we holistically move from crude form of agricultural practice to modernized type, our agricultural practice remains in comatose.
And Clifford Agogoesi tweets, now there are rivers and rivulets in Imo State around which dams could be built and irrigation encouraged. He goes ahead to list the places, Urasi, Ezize, etc. I hope the inflection is right.
And then Emmanuel Damina says, now that the country is re-emphasizing agriculture, the construction and the renovation of dams should be a priority, and also supply of farm tools.
Dele Jack Solomon again, this is the last one I'm taking. Irrigation would enhance complementary agricultural water management for the development of all agro-sector, thereby enhancing food security. All right, now this is some of the tweets that we have in the meantime. Just before we bring in the other guests, two other guests to get their closing thoughts on this, back again to the Minister of Water Resources. Yes, our focus in this conversation this morning has been on dam development and irrigation. But one of the other points that we have also heard over time is that dams ordinarily should serve multi-purposes. You have dams for agriculture, which is irrigation. You have dams for industrial use. You also have dams, for electricity power generation, and in particular, dams for domestic water use. So if we are proceeding with this irrigation development agenda that we have for the next 15 years, are we therefore excluding these other potential multiple uses of dams?
Not at all. Like you said, there are many purposes for dams. There are dams. Some dams have been built purely for water supply. There is even no land for them available land for agriculture. There are dams that are for hydropower, and they could continue to be used for hydropower. Whereas those that are multipurpose, it all depends on the terrain, it depends on the availability of the water, it depends on how they were designed. And the way they were designed is how they will be used. Unfortunately, we have built so many multipurpose dams, but the problem has been when we build the dams, we stop there. So maybe of course, under the National Water Resources Policy, drinking water is #1 priority. So sometimes when we have these dams, there is already available water for drinking, then we stop and forget about that. So we can also use it to eat, or we can use it for fisheries and so on. So I think there is no conflict. But what is essential is that there must be a complete water balance. If the water available cannot support drinking and agriculture, hydro is okay because you are not actually consuming the water. You are just using the energy of the water and draining it down, and can still be used for most of the time. It doesn't affect downstream activities. But the conflict is between drinking water and irrigation water. And normally when you design a reservoir very well and you use it effectively, that shouldn't be a problem.
And there are also multi-purpose dams. What about Goronyo Dam? Will you be able to bring us to speed with what's happening in Goronyo Dam?
Goronyo is one of the largest earth dams we have in the country. It has the potential to support thousands of hectares of irrigation. Again, this is the problem. First phase of the irrigation system was provided, but in subsequent years abandoned. But there is an ongoing program now to increase the hectareage. It's still part within the program of the irrigation development. But the key problem of Goronyo is there are some safety concerns. There's excessive leakage, and I know that the World Bank, under the trimming program, has recently conducted some safety studies, and when the report is out, we'll begin to take certain measures. But it has a huge potential that we have to maximize, and we're working on it.
All right, Architect Ibrahim, let's get your thoughts on this. Well, while the government and other stakeholders are proceeding with the irrigation plan for 2016 to 2030. There are some dams, existing dams, that we can immediately see, and what the concerns. Baccalaureate Dam, for instance, I mean, we started under the Shagari administration, and there are still issues with that, the extent of coverage and so on and so forth. What would you like to see done? That is to say, the low-hanging fruits with regard to dams that can be immediately either upgraded or revitalized for the benefit of your farmers, while the longer-term issues are dealt with.
The minister has said that they are looking at all these dams. The government is making effort to, expand the irrigation schemes, educate our farmers all around there. The World Bank is doing something to show the farmers how to do it better. I'm sure they are working on those existing facilities, and they have just started. 2 years maybe, in the next 4 years, according to the World Bank, would be able to pluck those hanging fruits.
Now you are a man of the people,
yes,
the farmers themselves, and you've talked about not being directly involved in all of this. Now, what would you like to see on behalf of your colleagues? What would you like to see going on in terms of do you have some dams you would prefer, the trimming and all of that to begin with, that would be more beneficial to your fellow farmers? Now, what would be your contribution if you are brought into the picture to say, look, what would farmers want us to do in respect of all of these plans and arrangements to make it better for all of you?
See, we have no choice. The systems that are in existence, you need to expand the irrigable land around them. You need to make them work better. You need to encourage our people to partake in the use of those resources. This is my desire, this is my hope, this is what every farmer would require, this is what would make us smile to the banks. So I want us to look at all the existing facilities first, make them work very well, and then if you want to do others, do them by all means.
If I may give you some comfort, all what we are doing now, we've already, the Federal Ministry of Water Resources and the National Irrigation and Drainage Policy have already incorporated all those issues that trimming is set to achieve. And moving on, and including what our river basins are doing, the management of our river basins, everything we are doing is going to follow the principles of this trimming. So you are likely to begin to see the results even faster than expected. I can assure you that.
All right. Well, gentlemen, we'd like to thank you. That's the most that we can take. We have a second topic to discuss on the program this morning. We'd like to thank Engineer Peter Manjuk, Project Coordinator, Transforming Irrigation Management in Nigeria project. It's a World Bank project. Engineer Manjuk, thanks a lot for your contribution. We also would like to thank Architect Kabir Ibrahim, is President of Farmers Association of Nigeria. Always a delight having you. Good morning, Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
And of course, last but not the least, Madam Suleiman Adam, Honorable Minister of Water Resources. Thanks a lot for being here today, as always.
Thank you very much.
All right, so it's Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll be dealing with the outcome of the French presidential election.
People are supposed to help people, but people help people and end up wishing they never helped anybody in the first place.
So this is what you people do. Okay? You people spray stolen vehicles. I know that.
In a world of give and take, learn what it takes to give, and the world will be filled with people who value what has been given.
Now my ancestors, all of them, let God bless you.
Until then, there may just be no help. Professor John Bull, your rib-cracking comedy, takes a look at issues arising from charity and compassion this week.
You know from the bottom of my heart, I love you. And there's nothing I will not do for you. But it's not everything. Zuzukweba, with your cap like plate for soup. Damn.
Showing at 8:30 p.m. every Tuesday and Friday on NTA Network International and Star Times.
Over and out.
Brought to you by Glow.
Welcome to the new speed of life.
To the outer framers, the fringe goers, you don't need to hide anymore. Try Dettol Even Tone. It cleans and helps to reduce the appearance of blemishes, giving your skin a healthy feel. Dettol, be 100% sure.
Admission forms for the 2017-2018 academic session of NTA Television College JAWS into its diploma programs are now on sale. The diploma programs are in film and TV production, broadcast journalism, and TV engineering technology. Applicants are required to have at least 5 credits, including English language and mathematics at SSC, NECO, or GCO levels in not more than 1 sitting. Application forms can be obtained from the TV College Refi JAWS or at any NTA zonal centers nationwide on payment of a no-refundable fee of 7,500 naira in bank draft in favor of NTA Television College. Completed application forms should be returned to the office of the academic secretary, NTA Television College, or the Center of Purchase on or before 28th of July 2017. For further inquiries, please call 0806 980 9807 or 0703 660 7155. NTA Television College, training you to be the best you can be.
Welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria, and it's my pleasure to introduce our next guest who will be discussing our second topic, French presidential election. Ambassador Akin Fayomi, former Nigeria's ambassador to France and Monaco. Thank you for coming, sir.
Thank you very much.
You are the right person to be here this morning. Islam, I'm sure you believe me. We have a 39-year-old, the youngest president of France, and of course a rookie politician. He has always been called, who came from nowhere, and people never believed in him. And I remember in the walk, to the stage where he, spoke to, French people. He had a long walk, which has been interpreted as, well, man alone, coming from nowhere and getting there. You understand the politics of France. Could you tell us what actually, happened?
Well, thank you very much. It actually was something of a shocker
to even the French themselves. It's either been the socialists or the Republicans, you know. Then this man came up about a year ago and said, look, I want to be in the center. I want to invite the French people, not left, not right. As long as you are French, let's march together. That's why he named this movement On March, with the move. As you know very well, he was briefly Minister of Economy under President Hollande. But I think he read the writing on the wall quite fast. I give him that a year ago, and he decided to resign, which is very unheard of, being a minister and then you resign without being sacked. So I think he had that vision that the French people actually need something different from either you are the left or you are the right. And he actually got it right. I must give him that.
All right. Well, Ambassador Fahmy, there's something else, because we also had it on the program sometime last year, following the election of Donald Trump as president of the U.S. There were concerns about the likely domino effect. We had elections coming up in the Netherlands. We have just the French elections and then the German elections, and everyone thought that, okay, perhaps there might be a move now, you know, towards the far right. You know, Marine Le Pen, of course, represents that tendency. We also didn't see that in the Netherlands. The French have made their own statement. What does this tell us in terms of the European politics and European attitude towards themselves, towards the U.S., and then, of course, towards the EU?
I think what I will say is that the Europeans themselves are not as you know, predictable as one would have thought. From all indications, from all the polls that we had, you know, we thought there would be a Frexit, you know, which based on the Brexit one, you know, and even exit. We thought Netherlands will also go far right and try to break from the EU. But all the leaders of the European Union, they heaved a sigh of relief, you know, that it didn't work that way, which is a plus for Europe. And it shows you that the Europeans themselves, they vacillate, and sometimes they're on the right, sometimes on the left, and it just, a visionary will just come up and say, look, let's change this dialogue, let's change this narrative, for God's sake. We've been at it for quite a while, and people bought into it.
Now talking about EU, Macron is known to be EU supporter, although he said EU has to be transformed or something, you know, before he could give it all his backing. And still the walking in question. There was this Beethoven made the song for Europe that was played. Does it mean that this young man believes in EU, the way he took it up?
I think he won his election mostly based on his pro-EU approach. He played to the older generation who won't want to leave the EU like Britain did. We are going through Brexit now. We know how difficult. I think if the British could have their referendum all over again, they won't leave. So yeah, that was a lesson for virtually every other country, and he played on that. And at the same time, he went pro-EU, but he put a proviso that when he gets there, there will be some reform, particularly the Eurozone. You know, the French love their French francs, and even being in Euro, it's a problem for them. So he was saying, we are going to have to look at that again. We are even going to have an Eurozone minister, specifically. That shows you that it's not totally going to be involved with the EU at the expense of France. He still wants to do some reform.
Well, let's.
So that's quite substantive. That means some people agreed with her anyway. So that's what he was going to have to try to bring them on board to toe the line of his own party
Can
politics.
we, Ambassador Fahmy, can we speculate on what a centrist French president might have as his disposition towards Africa and ultimately towards Nigeria?
I knew that would come. I don't really expect any change in terms of French approach to Africa and to Nigeria in particular. It's going to be a government of stability and continuity. The French have too much at stake to risk annihilating Africa and Nigeria, particularly with their largest trading partner in because himself being a businessman is used to. So you see, he's going to try to make amends as quickly as possible, and I don't really see anything ruffling the relationship between France and USA.
Well, there's something that I would like us, I would like you to speak on. That's namely the issues that are relevant in the campaign. I'm asking this question against the background of what we already know about the president-elect of France, 39 years old. His wife is 64, and the wife, of course, was his teacher. You would expect in the U.S., for instance, that would be a major election issue, but it appeared not to have been so in France. How do the French play their politics? I know that Paris, of course, is the city of love, so everything that is lovely, is it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you know, the French are, how do we say it, even in French, they are blasé. That means they are like live and let live. You know, they have this laissez-faire approach to everything. They don't interfere with anybody. Your life is your life, you know, and they live good life in France. So they don't really see it as an issue. It did not come up at all in the campaign, you know, apart from Ms. Le Pen, who made a bit of a reference to it during their debate. He was trying to make fun of him that he's not going to fall, she's not going to fall for his antics like his teacher, you know, something like that. And the people who are not really very, you know, they didn't find it easy. Yeah, because they thought, what's your business with that? That's their life.
With the incoming president?
I won't say that it's a particular issue outstanding, but as you know, every administration must have some sort of matters that they want to look into, maybe part of his campaign promise. But unfortunately, you see, as usual, Africa did not even crop up in their campaign, you know, so that was why I said there's going to be continuity, so to say. We have this issue of terrorism, you know, and that has always been there even before this administration, since President Jonathan's administration, President Buhari's own, when we were there in Paris also. This was part of our major concern, was the terrorism of Boko Haram and Al-Shabaab, which is in our sub-Saharan Africa here. And France has been in the forefront. You know how they came into Côte d'Ivoire also with President Gbagbo and all that. So all that is not going to stop. Those are issues that are continuous in terms of good governance. Trade also is continuous. We need to improve on what we have. We used to have 8 billion euros or so with France. It needs to be improved. That means it has to give the environment a conducive one for trade to thrive between the two countries, Nigeria and France.
We're seeing, I mean, it's been fairly frequent now in European elections, particularly in the bigger country. We've seen that now in France. We also saw it sometime in the past in the UK. I mean, Tony Blair at some point and David Cameron. They were younger persons, you know, when they came into office, and this is a record now, sub 40. What is this likely to mean, you know, for elsewhere on the continental Europe or maybe even in the United Kingdom? Is this likely to trigger another clamor for, say, hey, look, we want younger persons as our leader?
Yes, but like you yourself said just now, the British have always had younger leaders. It's always been a fad. You know, apart from Mrs. May, who just came in now, you know, so it's nothing new to them. The French, yes, that's why it made a record. How I wish that will trigger something, you know. But like you see, you know, in the U.S., we've had young presidents all along, and then there come Mr. Trump, 70 plus. So you can see that these things don't have any control. You know, it can go any way it wants, as long as the policy you have, it's good for the for your country. I wish it could be like that in Africa. We have too many old men around the place. You know how you know, somebody was tweeting something around about age that this Macron was not even born when some of our African leaders became president.
all right, Ambassador Fayemi, please, we'd like to thank you for being part of our program this morning. Yes, your submission has been very educative.
Thank you.
Ambassador Fayemi, the former Nigeria's ambassador to France and Monaco, thank you once again for being part of Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
All right, now we move on to our complimentary segments, and we're looking at sports. Chelsea is just one win away from clinching the 2016-2017 English Premiership Championship. Plus, of course, the Nigerian national team has made a selection of players to take on the Bafana in one of the Cup of Nations qualifiers. Let's go over now to our sports desk.
Good morning and welcome to sports. Returning five-time Grand Slam winner Maria Sharapova finally met with Eugenie Bouchard after the Canadian called her a cheater and suggested she should have been banned for life after failing a drug test. Eugenie Bouchard outlasted Maria Sharapova in